Salute and welcome to the post-game show, CT with EJ here to chop up the New York Knicks series lead now 3-1. Tonight was another party at MSG. Salute to the crowd, salute to the chat, salute to all the diehards. EJ, how are you feeling right now?
Untouchable. No, this is, I think many of us as Knicks fans have no words to describe the feeling that we feel right now. I had a moment to digest what was happening. And one of the most beautiful things as we wait to get our boy CT back on the ones and twos, Chad, if you're with me, I know that you're probably feeling and thinking the same thing after this glorious 102-93 win by our New York Knicks. You probably had a moment just like me where I looked out at the scenes on 32nd and 7th Avenue and could not believe that we are up 3-1 against the Cleveland Cavaliers. They might have the best player on the floor, but as of right now, they don't have the best team on the floor. So I'm excited. I'm truly excited. I feel untouchable right now.
We here.
Yes.
That's right. John Starks, the legends in the building. It was a great day. I was about to say great night. It is a great night. It was a great day. Obviously, we'll talk about the game. We'll chop up the road ahead. Shout out the chat. But yeah, they did it. Man, they sweeped the MSG games, which was big. Cleveland made a run, but Darius Garland tried his best, but it wasn't enough. The New York Knicks stayed with it, and we're witnessing now the growth of some of these players on the New York Knicks, some young players that have been criticized, been unfairly at times criticized, but when the moment was big, they stepped up. RJ Barrett, man, stepped up huge. What did you see? What did you want to say about this effort today?
Listen, Rowan, he has been the past two games exactly what we needed when we needed it. When we think about games 1 and 2, it really without game 2, really game 2 was a wash. There was nothing really that could really happen after the second quarter. But when you think about the production that we haven't gotten necessarily from Julius this game, RJ was necessary. We were talking a lot about, and again, we're having some technical difficulties. God bless the internet. CT and I are doing the show from two different continents, a worlds away. He's doing it from Australia. I'm doing it from New York City. But sometimes technology is imperfect, but he'll be back on in a few seconds. But chat, throw in your conclusions about RJ tonight. I mean, he was really sensational. I'm going to steal this analysis from our friend of the show, John Schmelk. Shout out to John Schmelk. I want RJ to watch the tape of this game. Watch the tape of this game and watch the tape from game 3, because this was almost perfect RJ. From the points, his production in terms of points, from his almost smooth production, his smooth offensive output, his ability to make quick steps. One of the things that limited all season was whether or not that RJ had the ability to blow by defenders. But tonight, he was defensive. He was more explosive in nature. He was decisive. And there's no question about how much of a contribution he made to this Knicks effort tonight. What are your thoughts, CT?
Everything you said was on the money, and I'm just trialing out some new close-ups, so I'm actually still here. So I'm just playing with you. Yeah, we're working on some things, but yeah, you said it. Like tonight, the the pressure was there. They made that run, but
Yeah.
really proud of the way we stayed with it. And Julius Randle, we'll talk about him, but he didn't have it going. But what's important about this team is we make the right decisions. I think
Yeah.
Tom Thibodeau deserves a lot of praise for today because he did the right thing, and he gave this opportunity for the offense to get more spread out.
Yeah.
We've talked about it for a long time, where if Barrett, Randle, and Brunson are all on the floor together, and a few of them aren't shooting well, and the defense can clog things up, it's not great, right? But when you have, you take one of them away, and the spacing improves, and I think Barrett capitalized.
Yeah.
He made quick decisions. He got to the cup aggressively. He finished well. And I think it's a credit to him, credit to the organization, to Tibbs, and Jalen Brunson and Barrett closed it out strong. Right? It's not easy. It's not easy because Cleveland, as undermanned as they were, made their run. They got in front, and I was slightly worried that we would throw this one away. But that just speaks to the growth of this
Yeah.
organization, man.
It
Yeah.
speaks to the growth. It speaks to the lessons that RJ and crew are going to be learning, not just for this off season, but future off seasons. We'll have an opportunity to talk about Cleveland and what's happening with them. But one of the great things to take away is that RJ is growing up right before our eyes. This was somewhat of a frustrating season for him, but it says a lot about his mental fortitude, mental makeup to show up during the postseason. That is huge. Not every player can step up and have the drive, have the determination, have the willingness to take shots in crunch matter and crunch time. Let's like William just mentioned, RJ is that punch. He really gave a gut punch to Cleveland, and to do it against the bigs and say we're not afraid of Evan Mobley, not afraid of Jared Allen, but it was a really strong performance today.
Um, yeah. Barrett picked his spots, took good shots, on point. Yeah, the chat's on fire, as they should be, right? Now, EJ, were you surprised by the Cleveland Cavalier? I guess I'm not going to say they didn't fight or they didn't give any kind of effort, but it just seemed like it came up pretty short.
Well, I don't know if you remember this when we talked the other day. One of the things that I said Friday night, one of the things I mentioned was that I was concerned about Cleveland's body language. And not, I'm in no way, shape, or form a Cleveland fan, but I'm someone who likes to pay attention to all the nuances. And at the end of game three, you could see Cleveland, that body language was not positive. There was some cause for concern. So I think that
Mm.
this was the kind of game that traditionally, as a Knicks fan, you could see as a trap game. It was a Sunday afternoon matinee game. Um, the Knicks had won game three. Uh, Quentin Grimes was out. Quickly hasn't necessarily been the quickly that we had seen throughout the season. So this had all of the makings of a trap game. But the thing that really seemed to factor and loom large is that there's something really off about Cleveland.
Mm. You said it.
Something really off.
Yeah, you said it before game after game three,
Yeah.
and I think this is the postseason, the biggest test, and the Madison Square Garden situation is the toughest for me. I mean, who would want to be an opposing player or team in that environment, EJ? Like
Yeah.
it's literally nuts. Um, what was the biggest surprise from tonight?
The biggest surprise, aside from Cleveland not necessarily showing up, the way that I expected them to. You would also have to mention Donovan Mitchell. Um,
Yeah.
I,
Yep.
I think that we're going to, at the end of all of this, have to recalibrate how we measure superstars and who the best players are. You know, we see all these rankings and all of these predictions at the start of the season. They are garbage. And I'll just say it the way I used to hear it when I was a kid from the hood I'm from. They're
Mm.
garbage. They are straight garbage. Shout out to my boy Tommy. He used to say that all the time. But you know, I tweeted at Mark Berman.
Mm.
This series, friend of the show, Mark Berman. This series is going to redefine a lot of players and how we view them.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know if we can view Donovan Mitchell, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley
Yep.
in the same way that we had viewed them prior to the start of this series and even prior to the start of the season.
Mm.
So that's some of the takeaways I'm taking away from this series at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. You said it. Um, 3-1 up now. Uh, how confident are we feeling, EJ? Chat. Let me know. Right. Closing out the series is no joke. Right. It's
Yeah.
it's not as easy as it sounds, but um, the fact is, we do need to say now we are 6-2 against Cleveland this season.
Yeah.
That's that's emphatic.
Oof.
Um,
Confidence is a good question, bro.
yep.
Um, I'm someone who I approach every game cautiously. Never want to get to the realm of arrogancy, or arrogance rather. Um, but Cleveland seems they don't seem in a good place right now. Um, and what's also very interesting is that have we seen this series a game where both Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland both play well at the same time?
We have not. That's Man, you hit. That's a really good point. Um, and again, the depth. I come back to that, EJ. The depth we said that would be this team's strength, and we games 1 and 2 we hadn't seen enough of our depth step up.
No.
But in games 3 and 4, we've come to now see what we hoped and what we maybe expected to see from this wider team. No Quentin Grimes tonight, right? But the colossal effort of Josh Hart, RJ Barrett's
Mhm.
defense. And again, I want to shout out Emmanuel Quickly's defense.
Yeah. And don't forget my boy Obi. Uh,
Yeah, have at it. Give
my
all the
boy,
flowers.
listen, you know, I like to root for homegrown players, and Obi, for Obi to close out the game, that really should have been my surprise tonight. Obi closed out the fourth quarter. And that was one of the conversations of the fourth quarter, is that that particular lineup seemed to be really effective, really cohesive. And the question that the broadcast team posed, which I think every single Knicks fan was thinking, is was Julius Randle going to get back on the court? And for that to be a decisive no, and to see Obi on the floor, to see Josh Hart, by the way, like he's easily becoming one of my favorite Knicks. Like, I mean,
He's he's gonna get paid.
he's gonna get a couple of bags.
Yeah,
He's gonna get a couple bags and then a bag to put those bags in.
and then a truck
A
to put
truck.
all of those bags in.
Listen, because one of the things is that he has the character of a winner, and it doesn't always translate into the stat lines. But this guy, his energy, he deserves flowers. I mean, there's a shot during the broadcast when he's singing. That energy, he's that guy. He should have gotten a contract a long time ago. You know, but he needed to be in the right situation with the winning culture to help contribute to the culture. Because he seems to just be like that kind of player that you just want to play with.
Yeah, yeah. Built for the playoffs.
Absolutely.
Now we're seeing We've heard terms like playoff P,
Hmm.
playoff Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
We're getting to learn more about our players, which is the beautiful thing about this situation because we wanted to learn more about how this roster could hold up. You know, is it fool's gold, regular season, Tom
Mm.
Thibodeau, kind of thing? Is it a situation where we wouldn't have another gear we could go to, or we would flounder? And I knew this would be different to 2 years ago, EJ. I knew coming in, we're a different team, we're tougher. And I like Dirty says in the chat, we cannot diminish what this team has accomplished now. Um, there was 13 ESPN people project a Cavs win, most of them in six.
Wow.
There was only 4 people that predicted the New York Knicks. What are your
Wow.
thoughts on that?
I can't say anything because I said Cavs in seven.
Mm.
So who am I to cast aspersions and to condemn people for calling the Cavs? I did think that the Knicks could present a difficult and would present a difficult challenge for the Cavs. But if the Knicks win in five, I mean, seriously, that is surprising. And the other thing is too is ESPN pundits, they watch a lot of basketball, or at least they're supposed to watch basketball. I got a day job, you got a day job, so Sacramento games, Golden State games, the LA games, Denver games. I'm gonna be honest, and I'll keep it a total buck. I don't have time to watch all those games, but
Yep.
you expect the ESPN basketball teams to be aware of all the teams, watching the Cleveland games, watching the Knicks games, watching the Brooklyn games, watching Golden State, watching Denver, and to see some of the predictions and to think that the Knicks would lose handily. I'm kind of glad. I'm not kind of glad. I'm very glad that the Knicks are embarrassing a lot of these predictions, including my own.
And yeah, I said game one how much that meant to this series, stealing that filling out game,
Mhm.
because that's a game where it's like it's their best versus your best on the road. To steal that one has created this advantage. Otherwise, it would be a 2-2 split still. And sometimes that's all you really need, EJ chat, to just win that early game before and steal their kind of confidence. I think that was big for the belief. Julius Randle had a great game in that game. So
Yeah.
I'm not about to get on players that didn't play well tonight because if you look over the course of this series, Barrett's been down a few games, up a few games. Yes, we haven't seen the best of Randle yet, um, but like I said, sometimes it's matchup dependent. Sometimes if Brunson is to shine and Barrett is to shine, another player has to take a step back.
Yeah.
If Randle was shining tonight, we probably don't get the Barrett game. So it's you take the good with the bad, fam.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's the thing that the Knicks can do that Cleveland can't do. If
Mm.
Garland and Mitchell aren't firing on cylinders at the same time, it's hard to see them really creating separation. The best game that those two players had together was game two. And that's where you had that calamitous second quarter for the Knicks. But otherwise, the Knicks can present a dominant game by Brunson, but then also have a game where Josh Hart is in his bag, or a game where Brunson is going off and RJ is going to cause issues. Or you can have a game where it's Brunson. You see, that's the thing. It's the beauty of this roster
Mm.
is that on in any game you can have this combination of players that are really, really going to create chaos for the Cleveland roster.
Man, I like the comment also about the depth
Yep.
on screen right now, man. On point.
Yeah, NYC ball definitely. That's been
Shout
stuff that
out.
we talked about. And this is a lesson for us as Knicks fans in terms of how do we want to construct our rosters. Do we want to trade and gut our rosters for what kind of player? Who's the player that we're willing to trade multiple draft picks, trade young players? Um, I think Donovan Mitchell is an incredible talent, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the right talent for the team at that particular point.
Yeah. Sometimes it's also about like patience.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes let's be real. You do have to make that all-in move at some point sometimes, but it's about patience. It's about when is the right time to go all in. And
Yeah.
I think we hadn't yet seen Obi in a bigger role. We haven't seen
Hmm.
Grimes being a starter yet. There were so many reasons. Another fourth year for Barrett. There was so many reasons for Leon to just hold firm for another year to see what we would look like with Jalen Brunson and another point guard, another year of Randle to see if he could bounce back. So it starts from the top, and we here because of the front office, making a lot of those savvy decisions, and it's great to see the fan base appreciate that now.
Yeah, bro. And the other thing is too, and I think we said this at the start of the season.
Mm.
Um, the price of the cost, rather, and I said this at the start of the season, the cost of Donovan Mitchell for Cleveland versus the cost for the Knicks were two different costs. So imagine having made that trade now when we know better what an IQ is. We're seeing a version of Barrett. We're seeing a version of IQ. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to pay as much now to make a deal as when we were thinking about doing it at the start of the season. So I think that that's something that when we can get to the off season, which I hope it isn't for a while, it's something for us to think about. Like we have these assets, but it has to be the right player at the right cost.
Yep. And familiarity, I said, was one of the key reasons I picked 45 wins and us to be better than the Heat, the Raptors, the Bulls, maybe Atlanta, because we're bringing, familiarity back with the core. Mitch, Barrett, Randle. You add in the right pieces with Brunson, Hartenstein, and I think you see what we can do. And we're seeing the engine now with Jalen Brunson. Now tonight I was fairly surprised they did not bring the hard trap early with Brunson, but I think they were just tired, fam.
Yeah,
Let's not underestimate the 1 day break. Well,
yeah.
really, a day, 1 day and a half. I think that played in our favor as well. How did you feel with the end of the third, fourth quarter? I think even Spider looked fairly tired. He just did not try to even take over.
Yeah, and listen, they didn't have that other gear. And we talked about this at the end of game three when we talked about the minutes log, Cleveland versus New York. I forget who exactly it may have been, but it might have even been Spider Mitchell who played 37 minutes, game three.
Wow.
And, I think that our highest player that night, which may have been Brunson, was in 32. So those splits, and I might be all wrong, is like in terms of who it was, but those splits, those minutes, especially when you're playing from behind, tired team, shorter roster, shorter rotation. These are playoff intensity minutes. You're already banged up, playing on an opposing home court. This was a really difficult game for Cleveland, and I'm fully excited that the fact that the Knicks took advantage of that.
Yeah, they did. Took full advantage. It starts with our defense for me, really, tonight, EJ. And like Dirty says in the chat, IQ, I think his performance has been very underrated the last 2 games.
Mhm.
Um, IQ hasn't had the best offensive series, but defensively, we lose Grimes tonight, but it just shows how much our defense, perimeter defense, has taken a step over the years. It was our Achilles heel. Um, Now we have like 4 to 5 potentially plus perimeter defenders with Grimes, Hart, quickly,
McBride.
Deuce McBride and Barrett
Yeah.
if he locks in with
Yeah.
capabilities. So to me, yeah, it was a huge effort or team effort to quieten down Garland, who was going off. That was when Julius Randle's defensive effort was lapsing tonight. But the mental strength, and I go back to Barrett again, not being too forceful, but us playing fast on the break too. Without Josh Hart, without Barrett's ability to get to the rim and create that pressure, we would have just been a jump shooting team. And who knows what would have happened because we did put their bigs under a lot of pressure.
Yeah, that pressure was apparent all night. Sorry, all day rather.
Mm.
Whether it was, Brunson really breaking down those traps the second half, or Mitch applying a lot of pressure, a ton of pressure on the offensive glass. There were just so many smart decisions that you could just see begin to demoralize the Cleveland roster. So, this was really a game of lots of intelligence, a lot of smart decisions, whether it was the coach making smart decisions, understanding that he needed to play certain players at certain positions. For example, giving Deuce McBride, that was really, really smart.
Yep,
You wanted to
love
throw,
it.
some frustrating defensive coverages at Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. And you could see it. I mean, Donovan Mitchell really was out of the game for the majority of it. I mean, that says a lot. This is someone who I believe in game one uh, gave 38 points, and he has not necessarily had that resounding game since. So those kind of defensive coverages, those kind of players, they're frustrating, and I loved every single second of it tonight.
Leadership, like NYC says, they say JB wasn't an all-star this year, one of the
No.
biggest snubs. People still continue to doubt him, but let me ask you, time to be real honest now,
Hmm.
and might be somewhat overreactionary because we've seen one series against Spider, but Chat, EJ, um, compare Jalen Brunson to Spider now in terms of worth
I
for
knew you were gonna ask
for
the question.
for each respective team.
I truly believe Jalen Brunson needs to be on All NBA this season. I think that Donovan Mitchell will accrue a lot of accolades. It's almost as if every single writer, every single voter, most voters will, without thinking about it, give him first and second place votes. And I wish that some of these awards were handed out after the playoffs, because it feels as if the playoffs and the regular season increasingly are two very separate seasons. Uh, like with load management, uh, with teams tanking more than ever. Teams taking like when I was a kid and I watched basketball, it was an anomaly to see teams really tank. It was more of an embarrassment to tank. Like you didn't want to be the perennial bad and awful team. Like you didn't want to be who was like a really bad team when I was growing up. Um, like
Washington.
Washington. Yeah, I was actually thinking the Washington Bullets. Washington was a really bad team. You didn't want to be that. That's considered an embarrassment, especially because back in the 80s and the 90s, there wasn't the internet. So you could lose money. Your franchise could lose money because your people wouldn't see your team on NBC. They wouldn't see them as part of the game of the week. Um, but what's happened now is because so many of the games aren't necessarily like really played fully. Like when's the last time KD and LeBron have actually played one another? How many times have we seen, for example, Golden State rest Clay, Steph, and Draymond the same game? What ends up happening is that we don't know how to actually measure how good of a player is in the regular season and then award or reward them for their production in the regular season, and for them to have them not be able to manifest the same level of production or the same level of quote unquote excellence in the postseason. This is now two postseasons in a row, and we shouldn't count our chickens before they're hatched. We couldn't count our eggs before they're hatched. But this is now two postseasons in a row where Jalen Brunson has outplayed Donovan Mitchell. I don't know who's watching. I don't know who votes. That should, for this whatever next top 100, NBA basketball players, that should really start to inform how people view Jalen Brunson. And really, that should start with whether or not he makes an all NBA team this year. He deserves to be noted as one of the top 15 basketball players of this particular season.
Yeah, man, he's building a heck of a pedigree from college, being that champion, helping Dallas go to the ECF, helping now the Knicks become a super winning franchise in terms of, who knows how far this thing can go this year, but just optimism for next year and beyond. 26 years old, man. Winning player, clutch, he was also slightly snubbed in the clutch situations, right? He was a really clutch player all year, but you want the ball in his hands, right? As a coach, if you, me, EJ, the chat, if we're coaching an NBA team, we want a player like Jalen Brunson as our point guard. And out of all the 30 teams, another question for you.
Yeah.
How many point guards get taken before Jalen, in a pickup game? If you lined up all the point guards, how many point guards get selected before you think someone's tempted to choose Jalen Brunson?
Well, I think that's part of the issue. Thank you so much, Dirty. I think, I hope that it's been corrected. I think part of the issue is, what are we looking for? Are we looking for flashiness? Are we looking for, are we waiting for winning? Are we looking for a winning pedigree? Are we looking for leadership? I think that one of the issues that we have is that Jalen Brunson's game doesn't go viral very often because it's a collection of smart decisions. It's a collection of making players around him better. But there's something about this kid where he is able to take over a game. And I'm going to say, and I said this before, I think he's taking this series quite personally. I think that there's something about him where he has a little bit of that Michael Jordan in him, where it's the, perceived slights or real slights really tick him off. And he has it in his mind that he's going to prove a point. And he's really proven the point. So, as Dirty's saying, that performance under pressure is really what shows what kind of player that particular individual is. And I'm sorry, I hate to say it, the divide between regular season and playoffs, Jalen Brunson has been incredibly consistent both playoffs and regular season. So who are we taking ahead of Jalen Brunson? If Steph is healthy, Steph. Fox, maybe. But I think, I think the list is getting shorter. The list is getting smaller. I think at the start of the season, people may have said like Therese Halliburton, they may have said, Donovan Mitchell. The list is getting small now. It's getting much smaller. I'm actually struggling to think of people, particularly in the Eastern Conference, who you would select over him.
Dame, yep. To me, I got to think about it. But it's close.
I would think about it. Because Dame is also on that other side.
Yeah,
Dame is 32, 33. So
it's super close. But also, just put in the chat, I want to add, Jalen Brunson's salary is going to descend. So shout out to Leon Rose, the chat, Nick Streets out here. We could get hyped up for the flexibility moving forward. Yeah, talk about underpaid. I know there was a bit of a joke, people talking about Brunson underpaid but it's legit now. He
Yeah.
really is underpaid, right? If Jalen Brunson earned 28, 30 mil a year after this season, I don't think anyone would really blink an eye if he gets the Knicks to the second or third round, because that's living up to your money, the definition of that. And I said at the start of the year and halfway point, I think, does Jalen Brunson have another gear he could go to?
That's the question. Yeah.
That's a really legit
That's the
question.
question.
I think he could become even more clutch. The 3-point shooting. Um, Chat, you guys let me know if you feel like a particular area of Brunson's game could go to another level. I think 3-point shooting is another thing. Decision making, I guess, beating the trap. He was a little bit slow to adjust in game two,
Hmm.
but his defense, EJ, he always wanted Tom Thibodeau's. Mark Bowman told us one of Tom Thibodeau's goals this season was to make Brunson a better defender, and I think he's lived up to that. How do you feel like about Brunson's defense over the year?
I think I think there's been definite improvements. I think that we never expected him to be um, a prime, um, defensive stalwart. We didn't expect him to be, a defensive threat. We didn't expect him to be um, a lockdown perimeter defender. But at this point, he's causing havoc on both sides of the ball, and that's what we were looking for. That's what we were asking for. Um, you know, like, and again, like, I would prefer Jalen over Ben Simmons. Like, think about what people perceived Ben Simmons to be a year ago and what he's become.
Yep.
You
Oh,
know, so and that's the thing. And Ryan Patterson, I totally agree with you. They pulled off a heist. I don't think. I think that's what's really amazing is that he can become a much better player in a year or two. And there's a number of players who a season ago, when we look back, I mean, I think we probably should do a show on this, like, look back at the top 100 rankings that ESPN put out and Bleacher Report put out and laugh at some of the rankings because, he may not be a defensive stalwart, but damn it, I'll take him over a Ben Simmons who,
yeah.
you know, what does he become?
Also, let's not. You got to take into account and can't forget how much energy output he uses on the offensive side. We are a heavily isolation offense, so with Brunson able to have enough effort defensively, a lot of point guards take plays off anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
But Brunson does give you that effort. He takes charges, all of that stuff. But in terms of tonight, yeah, RJ Barrett, two huge games in a row. Jalen Brunson, tick for this playoff series. He's proven he can deliver once again. Mitchell Robinson's first playoff series.
Yeah.
How have you seen? How have you seen that?
I, Again, another player who has been worth every single dollar for this particular series. Um, a lot of his plays today were so timely. Because this was a game that it felt as if we were always on the cusp of, breaking the game open, but Cleveland stuck around just enough so that we didn't have that comfortable 20-point lead. It seemed to, like, max around 12, 13 points. But then it was a Mitchell Robinson whose real tenacity became incredibly frustrating for Cleveland's front court. So for me, for someone who really lacks the playoff experience, and often does not receive, and this is a common thread with a lot of our Knicks players, is that there often isn't the accolades in basketball media for a number of our players. But tonight, or rather this afternoon, Mitchell Robinson really put on a show to show his value to this organization, to this roster, because there were several putbacks that weren't only clutch, but they were key to kind of ebbing the runs or mini runs that Cleveland was on. What do you think, CT?
Yeah, I said it. coming into this series how much of a factor Mitch would be. I picked Quickly and I picked Mitch as the players to give us an edge, and Mitchell Robinson has definitely given us that edge over their bigs. Another night where he dominated, tremendous, just offensively. He's matured. He's really grown as a player in terms of poise, composure. 7 offensive rebounds tonight, 11 total. Yep, gave us 12 points. 2 of 3 from the line also.
Yeah.
They looked for him a bit more. If we do ever get to see that Mitch version of Mitch that can put the ball on the floor a little bit, take his
Just
man
twice
off
a
the
game.
dribble.
Just twice a game. That's all we need.
Yep. That fake. They should just set that up as a play, a fake dribble handoff with Mitch, and he just quickly turns the corner and beelines to the cup. That's going to be a deadly move that no one expects because he hardly ever gets aggressive. I think we should keep that move up our sleeve for a final game play with 5 seconds left where he fakes the handoff and.
As all of us are clutching our hearts, like saying, "Oh my gosh, please don't turn it over! Please don't turn it over! Please don't turn it over!" He did it.
Well, that's another part of Mitch's evolution, to be on the floor in the final possession. Because remember, if they foul him, hitting free throws is going to be the next evolution in his future. To stay on, make sure that he stays on the floor.
Yeah, I think that's going to be like what's really incredible is that when you look at the combination between Mitchell Robinson and Isaiah Hartenstein, you have 48 minutes really of really quality center play. And there are not that many organizations that can say that they can get that much production from their 5 position for 48 minutes, from 46 to 48 minutes. And for them to both offer really, at times, similar things, but really unique skill sets, so that there isn't too much of a redundancy in what they do, but it's just different enough so that if Coach Thibodeau wanted to apply a different look, he could do it, but still get most of what he needs from his 5 position. And that's why, shout out to Mitch and also shout out to Isaiah Hartenstein, who, when we hit December and January, he had hit a real low. Like he almost seemed as if it was a poor pickup, but then something seemingly clicked around February, where all of a sudden his season turned around, and it's continued to this day, and including his performance today. So to me, like Mitch and Hartenstein are this perfect freak monster, and to have either one of them on the court is really, really, really amazing.
Super amazing. What was your highlight of the game tonight? Everyone in the chat, EJ, what was your highlight tonight?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I'm happy to go first if you want me to.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a few that come to mind. The Brunson isolation step back 3 in Garland's face with the celebration. For me, that was like, we won this game. Like, that's just, I don't need a screen. Get the heck out of my way. This is why I signed in New York City with the Mecca, right? Get out of the way, Garland. Get out of the way, media.
Yeah.
That was big. Josh Hart, those couple of last big offensive rebounds that he kept pulling down, which one of them was the dish to Brunson, I think, or one of those threes. The RJ Barrett and 1 play.
Yeah. For me, it would be Josh Hart. I think with about 2 minutes left, the clock is running down, and he quick turnaround, chuck towards the basket, definitely, and he makes it clean. That to me was one of the best moments. And the other thing too is just like let's. This is another special moment for me. As soon as the Knicks won the opening tap, the MSG was going crazy.
Oh yeah,
Again, this season, CT and I really will take. I will really take a lot of it today. Um, I was on MSG. I was on the people going to Madison Square Garden during the season, and how sometimes so quiet it was, or how quiet it seemed in the Garden. But that lower bowl, as soon as Mitchell Robinson won the tip, you could hear and you could feel it at home. So that to me was really, it's something that made me really excited. And I'll give you one more thing that, it wasn't
yeah,
part of the game, but it's something that to me is now this new generation of Knicks fans, and I'm part of like that older generation of Knicks fans. But seeing all of the fans outside of MSG Studios and just the excitement. This is a new generation of Knicks fandom where, back in the 90s, we were rabid, we were intense, but it had an energy that's different than the energy that we're seeing now. The one that we're seeing now is almost like if you're a fan of college football, or if you're a fan of like college sports, or, my boy CT is a fan of soccer, we're now starting to get to that soccer level of fandom where we're not quite at the point of killing one another, um, but you can see like outside of Madison Square Garden the energy of real Knicks fans. Not the cute people who they work for a great company, they work for like an S&P 500 company who they can afford box seats or suites, and they're only there to be there to like do business, but real Knicks fans who are so excited that they keep the energy after the game, and they are in the streets, they're on the LIRR, they're taking the train, and they are proud and loud, and you can see it. And to me, like I keep on saying, I've been saying this for the last 2 weeks, that's the energy that's going to attract whoever has to come here to put us over the top. So that when I saw that, I was like, I can feel it. It's about to happen within the next season or two.
yeah. It's coming.
It's
But what are
coming.
your thoughts? But chat, EJ, Tom Thibodeau. What do you make of this players' survey that Tibbs was voted the least desirable coach to play for? Um, or do you feel like it's players that don't want to be pushed in this league, and the players that do want to be pushed happen to improve their game under Tom Thibodeau? Julius Randle made a note that he wanted to play for Tibbs. Josh Hart came here because he wants to play for Tibbs also. So there's a small handful I'm seeing of players that do want to play for Tibbs, but there's maybe some people out there that still believe in that. Um, I'm going to be grinded to injuries with Tom Thibodeau.
You know what I say to that? Um, how did Brooklyn how did Brooklyn fare when KD and Kyrie got to choose not one but two coaches? How did Trey Young fare, or how well has it been going for Trey Young and the Atlanta Hawks with their coaches? It's not until they get to Quinn Snyder that we're still trying to figure out what's going to be taking place there. Listen, a lot of us in whatever field we're in, we don't necessarily want to work for someone or have someone tell us we need to work harder or we need to do this, we want to improve, especially if we've been told for a majority of our professional lives, um, or we've been told for a while, you're great, and you have people around you who are great. The difference is the people who are good versus very good to legendary, the people who are legendary, they surround themselves with people who are like, listen, you did this great, but here's something you can work on. They're almost maniacal with it. So, will every player want to play for Coach Thibodeau? No, because does every single player in the NBA really want to hone on a craft, or do they want to cash a check? And I mean, I'm not trying to cast aspersions on any player because they're doing something that I could not do. But those surveys and stuff, those surveys, of players and who they want to play for, they're as good as the player rankings that ESPN and Bleacher Report put out before this season. How well did that fare out? Since someone in the chat do me a favor, where did Ben Simmons end up in this year's Bleacher Report top 100 players? So that's as much garbage as those ESPN Bleacher Report surveys of here are the top 100 players, and Zion Williamson is going to be number 7, but he's only played 38 games.
Man,
Please.
you spitting facts right now.
Don't let me drop
Also,
bars.
just a note from one of our sponsors as well.
Listen, it's Cleveland, Ohio, and it's not the greatest city in the world, and I've been there way too many times in my life.
Exactly.
Out here buzzing right now. The streets are buzzing as the New York Knicks are up 3-1, the first round series. Right, this is going to be a long playoff run. I can feel it. Right, we're watching the Miami and the Bucks do battle. Hopefully that goes 7, no matter who wins. Hopefully there's a few more bruising encounters and we can close this one out in Cleveland. I said in the chat, I feel like RJ Barrett quickly should carry some confidence going back to Cleveland. But if not, that's what you fight for home advantage for. And I think we'll close it out in 6. But we haven't yet seen a Julius Randle game. Give us your thoughts on Julius this series and tonight, and what you can expect, coming in. Because I keep going back to the big 3, the mid 3 that people called it. Can all 3 have really good games at the same time? Are all their games complementary? Not so much at times. And I feel like for Barrett to have the performance he did, the floor was better spaced. He was able to drive and finish because Randle wasn't there. The shot wasn't falling for Julius. So I think it was a great move to stretch the floor out a bit more. But I am expecting Randle personally to have a bounce back game.
I think we can't discredit. First off, I'm going to compliment Julius Randle on the season that he had this year. Let's keep it a buck. Let's salute Jarvis. Let's keep it a buck. He's had a great season. The other thing we cannot diminish or take away is that ankle sprain was very severe. And we were really, really concerned about Julius Randle's health. And the fact that he was able to put it together, to cobble together with the Knicks the health facility and training staff, for them to be able to get Julius Randle on the court for game 1, and to probably add to the psychological stress that Cleveland was feeling. Because they may have, I'm assuming the Cleveland content creators were probably talking up the fact that, hey, Randle's not going to be playing. Randle's injured. Randle's going to be limited. And for him to show some level of productivity game 1, that's good. He still has to catch his wind. We don't know how severe that ankle sprain was. As our friend Mark Berman always said, MSG is probably more secure than the FBI and the CIA combined. MSG does not leak or does not talk that much. And I am pretty sure that no one gave out any information as to the health and severity of Julius Randle's ankle. So we have to give it time. Although we'd like to think that, hey, Julius is on the floor, he should be able to perform to his optimal level. We can't assume that right now because we don't know how much pain he's in. We don't know how much wind he lost, especially because Julius was someone who was playing upwards of 37 minutes a night. And to have not played for 2 to 3 weeks, and now then to play playoff basketball and play in the playoff manner, we have to give it time. And that's why I'm kind of excited that the Knicks are up 3-1, because it gives you a little bit more time and a little bit more leverage to figure out, okay, how far away is Julius from being regular season 2022-2023 Julius?
Yeah, he's that Iron Man, and in terms of the ankle, I don't think it's 100%. He's never going
I
to
don't think
really
so.
talk about that situation. But look, is he giving us his best? I'm sure he is. A lot of his game was built on the jump shot. If it's not fallen, what does Julius normally do? He gets to the cup. Well, how can you get to the cup with Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley standing there? So we're basically living and dying with Julius's jump shot right now. But like I said, I think we made the best in-game adjustment. And hey, that's growth, man. Us have been talking for so long. Can Tibbs make an in-game adjustment? And I think we saw that tonight. Maybe it was Randle that also discussed with Tibbs, hey, maybe it's best to not, to roll with RJ or someone. But, it is what it is. I think Randle will definitely be bouncing back. But the shot, it goes back to Julius's jump shot. But hey, let's not always highlight the poor effort. He made the play where he came back, gave that second effort with the block.
Yeah, yeah,
That was a huge block where the game was actually in question at that point. There's no doubt Cleveland was doing their best to make that run, and Julius pulled off that huge block. We had so many blocks tonight. Let's highlight how many blocks each Nick had. We had Isaiah with 2 blocks, Mitch with 2, Brunson and Barrett and Randle with a block each as well. Hartenstein with 2 steals, Hart 2 steals as well. And a really good night with the turnovers, right? We only had 10 turnovers
yeah.
tonight, so that's big. 5 steals as a team, only 15 assists, which lets we did get a bit stagnant, but 47 rebounds was big.
Yeah,
And we've become a fourth quarter team now,
yeah,
29 points to 22,
yeah,
closing it out. Josh Hart, for me, I run out of words to talk about with Josh Hart, right? I think it's the best trade deadline acquisition picked up right now in terms of just giving this team what it needs. I think there's a world where Cleveland's looking at this series and it's like, man, we thought we were better than this team. What happened? Well, we acquired Josh Hart at the deadline, and he was built for this city, built for the playoffs, built for the Knicks, built for Tom Thibodeau. You could see how much energy he loves being out there. You see the braids. He's hitting threes this season. He's getting steals, getting timely rebounds, locking down on the perimeter. Talk about motor. If you're going to play for Tom Thibodeau, if you have a motor like that,
yeah.
I mean, I wish we could just clone 5 Josh Harts, take it away.
Yeah, but that's why, like when we talked about that poll before about players who want to play for Coach Thibodeau, to me it's garbage, or as my friend Tommy would say, it's garbage, because again, like you have to have the right. Not every NBA player has the right mindset, and all of us can think of different players who had the talent to be in the league, but they didn't have the mentals, that's the word for it, or the mentality to be in the league. So, for example, I think of, like, for example, Michael Sweetney. He was a good player in Georgetown. He didn't have the mentals to be in the NBA. And we can go after player after player after player, but Josh Hart, he's so aptly named because you can almost just think like, just Hart. He's just Hart. He's just Hart. He's that guy. Um, and, if you are a Knicks fan, you have to appreciate uh, Josh Hart in ways that in the 90s we loved Anthony Mason. And now here's the thing, as much as we loved Anthony Mason and we opened, and I'll never forget the opportunity that we had to talk to Chris Herring about the book Blood in the Garden. Um, Anthony Mason, as much as he was a key engine, a key motor of those 90s Knicks, there were always concerns about, the mentals there at times. That doesn't seem to be as much of a conversation piece for Josh Hart. He's just someone who gets it, and he's someone who just adds that dog. And old head, you're absolutely right. Cleveland, that's something that they seem to be missing right now. Where would Cleveland be if they had a Josh Hart?
Yeah, you said it. In terms of like surprises, the shooting's been solid. But talk about, the pick was 23, so we gave away that late first round selection. That's looking like even better business as the days go by. With this playoff run and the future, they're going to keep Josh Hart. We know it's just a matter of how much they're going to pay him. And yesterday's price ain't today's price, by the looks of it. Now we got a super chat from Nikki B from Harlem.
Harlem World,
Salute,
stand up.
salute, salute, salute. You get the Angels bells.
Josh
Uh,
Hart equals Draymond and Anthony Mason thoughts.
as the streets is buzzing right now,
Yeah,
smashing that like button. Josh Hart equals
wow.
Draymond plus Anthony Mace. Man, give us your thoughts on that.
That might be the chat of the night. Hey, Buzzes, you gotta come up. You gotta beat that. That's hard. That's real hard right there. I'm trying to think it. That is a really good comp. That is a really good comp. Um, the only thing I would say is that no, it's a really good comp. That's a
Yeah.
really, really good comp.
Pushes the break.
Yeah.
But does he have a better outside shot?
That's where I was getting stuck, was that I was trying to think. The reason why I paused a little bit is because Draymond's outside shot is really, it's really inconsistent. Josh Hart's outside shot has been a little bit more consistent. Um, but
Yeah.
in terms of what he does, and that, Draymond is that interchangeable part that really, like, when you think about the Golden State dynasty, um, people sleep on how important Draymond is. And I feel like that's kind of Josh Hart's MO, where people have kind of slept on how important his interchangeability is to a squad. Um, and the other thing about Anthony Mason in that comp, Anthony Mason was one of those players who would grab a rebound and he would go. He would go. And although Josh Hart isn't built exactly like Anthony Mason, there are not a lot of people on earth who were built like Anthony Mason. Anthony Mason was, my gosh, like he was that dude, but he's almost built like a smaller version of him. Uh, but
Yeah.
that Nikki B, that Harlem World, stand up.
Yeah, stand up. Also, there's been some good comps coming through. Marcus Smart, that kind of what he means to us, to the team.
Mm,
Um, Also, will say this, we talked about it with, I think it was Bill Daughtry, about Hart, is he the long-term solution for the wing spot, the starting spot? And I kind of think like, let's say if we're going to pay Josh Hart a lot, how do you feel like he's going to be received, coming off the bench? Or do you think inevitably he becomes, a starter, um, you know, around whatever moves need to be made? But if I feel like if he was 6'6", 6'7", he would definitely be our solution for the wing.
yeah.
But then people did counter with that argument to say, look, he plays bigger. He plays bigger than what he is.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that that's going to be the conundrum is I,
Hmm.
I don't know. I do think the reason why I keep on talking so much about the off season is I do think that we have as much of a success this off season, as much of a success this season has been. Um, we do have some really important questions to answer this off season, and like one of them will be that wing position. Um,
Because
and yeah.
Quentin Grimes hasn't really delivered this playoffs yet either.
Hmm.
So, and he could be part of the future, absolutely. But for the now, Josh Hart deserves to be starting. I feel like I'm okay. I'm okay with his game coming off the bench, but I feel like if you're just looking at output, he deserves to be starting.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I also do think it is
Mm.
relative to what team we're playing. like if we do get into um, if we do get into the second round, if and when we do get into the second round, not counting chickens before they hatch or chickens before they catch. Um, if we're playing a Miami, I could see a Josh Hart starting. But if we're playing a Milwaukee with a Giannis, I think the math changes. I think the
Mm.
math I think it's then based upon matchups more than ever, because I like when you're talking about Milwaukee, you're talking about a whole different echelon of team. It's particularly like if Giannis is 80% of what he normally is, it's a different kind of calculus.
Yeah, 100%. And I salute to the chat, everyone coming through, everyone buzzing, showing out, get hype, get excited, throw out your feelings right now. Anthony makes a great point about returning to Cleveland.
Listen, it's Cleveland, Ohio, and it's not the greatest city in the world, and I've been there way too many times in my life.
And yeah, on point. That's going to be the hardest to close out because
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be amazing if we could close this one out on the road and not have to come back. But then it would be a pretty big break for the next series. But I think, given the rest and the injury situation, that would be ideal. But I'm not banking on it. But I
Hmm.
do feel like maybe we can stay in the game, and then maybe they just we take their heart out.
Yeah, I mean, to me, you close it out either game five or game six. You I think you respect your opponent enough to know that they're going to have some pride, and they don't want to get closed out on their home court. Yes, we did beat them game one, but I do know that these are players. A few of them are players that have a lot of pride.
Mm.
The way that Donovan Mitchell stood on that court at the end of the game, um, there's a level of pride there where he does not want to go out game five on the home court, having lost not only game five, not having only lost the series, but having lost 3 games in a row. So like you have to kind of bear in mind that it is very possible that whatever gas they have left in the tank, they're gonna really let it all go for game five, which then means then by game six, as you had predicted, that really should be the close of it. You don't want to give them too much of aspiration or hope or optimism as well.
Yeah, and you know what we said, we've played better on the road all season, but
Hmm.
to take care of home provides the icing on the cake for me this season, because there would have been so much shade and debate over, can the Knicks hold their nerve? We still can't win at MSG, all of that. Well, today, we silenced that. I'm so proud that we took care of home cooking, and also the crowd, everyone turned up, the role players stepped up. But RJ Barrett really has arrived in the playoffs. Jalen Brunson, we know what he's been able to provide. And Mitchell Robinson, for his first round series, he hasn't looked any less of a player. He's looked better in the playoffs as well. So that's really impressive for me. For some players who supposedly shrink in the playoffs, we've had
Right.
players, take that next step. And Donovan Mitchell, I've been quite surprised. I won't say, unexpected, but surprised of his series so far. But how much of it do you think is us game planning against Spider? Or how much of it do you think is just the pressure has got to him? Or they just don't have enough support?
I don't think they have enough support. I actually I think it's a combination of a few of the
Mm.
things that you said. I don't think they have enough support. Um, Again, this is something that we saw with the Heat, the Heatles. The Heatles were an amazing basketball story in 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, because when you have 3 players who command so much of your roster and in terms of salary, the issue that the Heat always had was how do you complement that talent with players who not only match the talent that you have, but who are also still in the optimal positions in their careers where they can help out and round out your rosters. This is the same issue that, Golden State started getting into, once they started to hit like the second portion of their dynasty. It's like you start getting into these places with roster construction that can be very, very difficult. It really is Jenga.
Mm.
And so I think this is what we're seeing with Cleveland is that they made the all-in move with Donovan for Donovan Mitchell, but one player does not make a team, and we're starting to see that that one player might be a singular talent, but without the proper accoutrement, or without the proper supporting system, support cast system. Yeah.
This is what we could have looked like with Spider if we'd given
Yeah.
up RJ, Grimes,
Hmm.
Obi. Maybe they would have won an IQ. Who knows?
Yeah.
We don't get to see this beautiful IQ season. With that said, yeah, look, I think Spider's still a star in this league, and I think the fit is more questionable on that side. Garland and Spider, right? To see Garland's potential this year, with Spider there, we wouldn't, I don't think Cleveland got to see a good of a season that they could have seen with Garland.
Yeah.
Spider comes in. So that's the roll of the dice you take.
Yeah.
If we bring in Spider last year, we may not have seen, we don't get this season from Brunson, possibly. So you got to consider, if I add something, does that subtract from
Yeah.
something? Or does that add, does that boost you up? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like an energy drink.
Yeah.
Make
That's
your
what that's what
morning. Yeah. Go
that's
on
what we
ahead.
were talking about at the start of the season. We talked about how with our predictions, we talked about how um, Jalen Brunson's addition was not just an addition of him and his statistics, but we all expected. I mean, you, me, Berman, we all expected that he would be someone who could add to Julius Randle's game. That was the thinking. And what you brilliantly said is that would adding a Donovan Mitchell be a subtraction to certain other players' games? And that's a really, really good question. And that's why, I'm whatever the next move is, because we all know there's a move that's coming at some point. It has to be logical, but it also has to be primarily a move determined by fit. Um, and that's really the concerning matter at this point is you don't make a move out of desperation. Um, and this might actually, you know, this might be the move that when we look back at the 2023 roster, the 2024 roster, we're complimenting Leon Rose as much as it may pain some of us to say this. We might be complimenting Leon Rose for not having made this particular deal. I mean, I listen to sports radio all day, and I can tell you sports, like broadcasters who are like, you have to make this deal, you have to make this deal. There's one I'm thinking of in particular who said, you make this deal no matter what because Donovan Mitchell is a star, he's a name. And that's illogical because it doesn't consider fit. And the same sportscaster, I'm going to hear this week, applaud the Knicks and their ability possibly by the end of this week to kick Donovan Mitchell out of the playoffs without having once considered fit and not just name value,
Yeah.
name recognition.
Yeah. Well, they've always said trust is earned, right? And I think the pundits are going to give Leon Rose a lot more credit if the Knicks can get to the second round. I don't think there's going to be any shade or doubt over some of these moves we've made now, especially if these young kids continue to develop and grow.
Yeah.
I mean, underrated fact is Deuce McBride has played decent in these last two games. That's playoff experience that he has looked like he belongs.
Yeah.
Brings that toughness, that defense as well. If we were to bleed some of our depth, to bring on more of these players is huge right now. And let's talk about the Isaiah Hartenstein signing as well, because that was clowned at some point this season also.
Yeah.
I mean, what he's shown to be is exactly what Leon Rose knew he would bring, and he's bringing it.
Listen, if you're Leon Rose, you know, his one of the things that is actually a strength for Leon Rose right now, which is not always a strength, is his silence. His silence, it
Facts.
annoys a lot of the people in the press, a lot of the people we talk to. They hate it because he's not someone who gives out a lot of interviews. But here's what ends up happening. When the Knicks perform the way that they have, when your two major signings of this season, this offseason, or your two major acquisitions this offseason, and Jalen Brunson and Isaiah Hartenstein perform the way that they have into the playoffs, that silence is deafening, dude. Hartenstein performing the way that he has, after what was a really difficult first part of the year. And part of it was probably fit, trying to figure out how do I fit? Where do I fit? Adjusting to the 9-man rotation. But that silence that Leon Rose has right now, a lot of us are eating crow because ESPN, Bleacher, Yahoo, all of these predictions, Vegas, Las Vegas, thinking that the Knicks were going to go 38-44, play-in game. Hartenstein is well worth the contract pickup. Jalen Brunson, well worth the contract pickup. And there are a lot of people right now who are very quiet, who won't apologize, and who, again, like the Knicks are on the cusp of not only not having played in the play-in, but played as a fifth seed, game one of the playoffs, might be defeating Cleveland, might be defeating Donovan Mitchell without someone who might end up being an all NBA player or first team NBA player. And it'd be hilarious if Donovan Mitchell is first team all NBA, but is out of the first round.
Yeah, we've ticked so many boxes, EJ and chat. We've won a game on the road. We've won both games at home. We're ticking the boxes as we go. And think about this, the way we've played. Give me your thoughts about how you think we would be playing against, let's say if this series was against Boston. I like our chances to take 2 or 3 games at least off Boston. I think we played Philadelphia very well this season. Everyone except Milwaukee, I don't fear at all. And Milwaukee with Giannis with some concerns, man, this thing is opening up just like a 7-Eleven.
Yeah, I mean that was the comment. That was the comment. Yeah, we made the other day.
Yep, we're learning as we go along too. We're continuing to learn, get better, take game at a time, and our young players gaining confidence. The thing I like about Mitch, right? He backed up what he said. That was bulletin board material to a T, but he backed it up tonight. He was like,
Yeah.
there were shook ones, mob deep,
Hey,
and
hey,
and
hey.
he came out and he absolutely that. He basically said that because he knew there was nothing they could do to keep him off the glass.
Let me ask you a question, CT. And this
Yeah.
is for the entire chat. This is for the entire Knicks Buzz chat. Which would be more impressive? Knicks close out the series in Cleveland, or Knicks close out the series game 6 at the Garden?
Oh,
You don't
would
have
be
to
more-
fire off one.
which would be more impressive?
Well, actually, let me change the question a bit. Which would be more meaningful? Which would be more meaningful? Closing out the series game 5, Cleveland, or closing out the series game 6, New York?
Game 5, 100% for me. We've shown we can win both games at home. To me, if this gets to 6, it ain't going back to Cleveland. So I think Game 5. I think, yeah, the chat's coming through with their thoughts on that. But great question, EJ. I think,
Thanks, man.
yeah, if we finish this in Cleveland and we win a second game on the road, we that's got to be the ultimate confidence, because that is a situation where Cleveland should be super juiced. I don't think they want to go out this way in front of their home fans. That is going to be the toughest game to close people out. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, yeah. I think for a lot of us, there's that thing about like closing it out in New York City. Again, guys, like I would actually kind of be scared if we close it out in New York City, if we close it out in Manhattan, because I could just imagine Knicks fans losing, all of us losing our minds and running up and down 8th Avenue, running across 34th Street. I can imagine 32nd Street being crazy. People going and like Penn Station just being a mess. But I
Yeah,
do agree with you, Space Ghost. I do agree with you. Just taking Cleveland, just taking their heart, just taking their heart out in Cleveland, and doing it 3 games in a row. That to me would be a huge statement. Plus, if you do it in Cleveland, that I like it when teams, except for our teams, they have to do a little bit of soul searching.
yeah,
Taking it in 5 in Cleveland would leave Cleveland really shook. And I'm talking about organizationally shook.
yeah. You said it. And we've beaten Cleveland already 6 games to 2
Yeah,
this season, right?
yeah,
Um, yeah. Am I right? Is it 6 games to 2
yeah. You're
already?
right. It's 6 games
Yeah.
too. Yeah,
Yeah. 3 games regular season, 3 games postseason. Um, and yeah, like Almighty says, we cannot blow this one. I don't think we're going to come close to blowing this one. I think we've already got that confidence now. What that team does, that smells blood. It's going to be a situation where we snatch it, and I think we win it. Definitely, we win it in 6. But hey, that would surprise me. That would be a pleasant surprise if we were to close them out. But I don't think we should go 99, 100% at at Cleveland, because it's a game where they're going to be as fired up as they can, and we don't want to get any kind of injury. What do you think? What should be the approach? Do you think we should just go all out to win that one, or do you think we should just see how the game goes and then play it safe?
I think you go for it because you don't want to risk. This is a league where one ankle turn, and we've seen a bunch of them this offseason. One fall, one slick spot. Um, you know, I want to end this as quickly as possible. I want Jalen Brunson to get 4 or 5 days of rest if possible, 6 days if possible. I want Julius Randle to be able to get therapy on that ankle. I want Josh Hart to be able to get therapy on that ankle. There's a part of me that I know that like basketball players are rhythm athletes, but I just want this over with. I want to be able to sit and much the same way that the networks are looking at Philadelphia and they're already talking about Brooklyn and their offseason plans. I want the same conversation to happen with Cleveland as quickly as possible. Don't mess around. Get it done. No, you don't. No, don't play with your food.
Yeah,
Don't play with your food. That's what my mother used to tell me. Don't play with your food. Do what needs
100%.
to be
Yeah,
done.
yeah. We might give them a little bit of confidence if they can have a really strong performance back in Cleveland, and they haven't won at the Garden now in 4 games this season, 4 or 5 games this season. So they might be thinking we're due.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm with you. We definitely try everything we can to close it out, because all we have to do is win 1 out of the next 3.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you
That's the
you,
other
do- you
part.
do you do the math, and I don't think a team's lost 3-1 up. 5%, 95% of the time, the team up 3 games to 1 closes them out. But also with the series going on in Milwaukee and Miami, What are you, what are your thoughts now? We can realistically look ahead. We're not being arrogant. We could now cast at least one eye on what awaits the New York Knicks in this next playoff series. Miami Heat, Milwaukee Bucks. Chat. What have you guys seen in that series? Jimmy Butler. It's a damn shame Tyler Hero is out.
Yeah.
First and foremost, I hate injuries, especially at this time. But I think with Hero, they would have a really, really legit chance at beating Milwaukee if Giannis continues to miss.
And here's the thing too that's really, really amazing to consider is what seed again is Miami?
They're in the 8 seed,
And what seed again is Milwaukee?
the 1.
So we're talking about for the first time that I can think of. I can't think of a time where an 8 seed you know what I'm saying? So I think
Yeah,
this is why I think the other night I talked about how the parity is amazing right now, and we need to take full advantage of it. Um,
facts.
and like I said before, the reason why I don't want to mess around with Game Five, if we can win Game Five, let's do it, is because it only takes one injury, only takes one dive on the floor. We saw what happened with Tyler Hero. Uh, we saw what happened with Victor Oladipo. And it doesn't have to be your star player. It doesn't have to be a Giannis. But in the case of Milwaukee, it was a Giannis. For the ebbs and the flows and the tide to turn of your series against you because one player goes down. Particularly this year. This year has been full of injuries.
Oh,
Um,
it's
like the
been insane.
Clippers, like the Clippers. I mean, the Clippers were a team at the beginning of the season. We were talking about finals aspirations. At this point, like I think the window has pretty much, it might be open a crack, but that's a team whose window has shut because of injuries. They've been beset with injuries for the last few years, and so in terms of what we were talking about with regards to Milwaukee and Miami, um, I've never seen an 8-1 series with the exception, like in the 7-game series model, play out like this.
Yeah, it's unique as we go along. Like sport is unscripted, it's
Yeah.
drama. We love it. And the New York Knicks are writing their next chapter in the franchise history. And I mentioned at the end of last game 3, we are having a new generation of Knicks fans that haven't experienced this buzz right now. So
No.
salute to everyone. Salute to all the diehards first. Salute to all the OGs. Salute to the new fans. Salute to everyone. There's room on this ship. There's room on this plane. There's room on this country, this planet.
Ha. Ha.
There's, the more the better. The more the merrier. Let's crowd this space. Not just the exits on
Yeah.
8th
Yeah.
Avenue, 7th
Yeah.
Avenue.
Yeah, man.
Salute to the chat, everyone buzzing right now. EJCT smashing that like button after a huge win, 3 games to 1 up. You guys let me know what was the most impressive thing so far tonight in this series. Kaiser Soze salute says Miami won't have Hero or Oladipo now, so that's
Yeah.
such a blow.
It's
I
a huge
hate
blow.
that, even though
It's
it
a
is the
huge blow.
Heat. I do think the Bucks end up closing it out, like Kaiser agrees. But also Finesse says, close out Cleveland first.
I agree. I agree.
Definitely.
It's not a
You
game.
know,
It's not a game. Yeah.
we're just having fun. We're just having
Yeah.
fun, but we'll close it out. 95% chance, right? CT's no mathematician, but I like those odds if I'm in Vegas. I didn't put any money on the Knicks on this series because I didn't want to jinx us, but I'm definitely feeling like I should have because I predicted the Knicks in 6.
You did. You
Like
did. A lot of
I
people could have
was,
made some money on this particular series if they had put money on it.
yeah, 100%. I went there. I said Knicks in 6, and it's looking like that's going to happen. One game on the road, maybe 2, but 2 games at MSG now. Give us your thoughts on Tom Thibodeau, this series so far.
If you were on Twitter, if anyone who was on Twitter, I interact with several beat writers and writers and columnists and people who are experts on the Knicks. And one of my favorite people is Mark Berman. And he just talked about how this series is going to redefine the relationship between Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson. And my response to him was, well, it's going to define and reshape how we perceive a lot of people. It's reshaping how we perceive Donovan Mitchell. It's reshaping how we perceived Jalen Brunson. I mean, Jalen Brunson at this point is going to be in the consideration for categories next season. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's an unequivocal, absolutely. But the other person is going to be changed. How we start to change the narrative with regards to that person. Tom Thibodeau. This series has forced him to make adjustments and to make decisions. And this entire season, he's done things that all of us have been like, wait, is that Coach Tom Thibodeau? As some of you guys like to call him Coach Comb Over. Some of you guys use that terminology to describe him. But, one of the questions that we had was his willingness to bench every and all players. He's shown that with RJ without any hesitation. He's shown that to Emmanuel Quickley. He's shown that to Mitchell Robinson when he gets into foul trouble. He does it to Obi. Many of us have bemoaned how little opportunity he gives to Obi. But for the first time, he saw something that was working, and he said it does not include Julius Randle. And he had no shame in making the decision to bench Julius Randle. So how we perceive Tom Thibodeau, it's now changing, and it's going to be harder. And every coach gets into the coaching business knowing that at some point they're going to get fired. But it seems as if Coach Tom Thibodeau has been fighting the firing claims since the start of his first season. And I think that this particular series, considering what all the expectations were at the start of the season, should start to subside now. It's going to be harder for some of us in the Knicks space for us to constantly go back to, well, it's the coach's fault. It's the coach's fault. Because we're exceeding all expectations beyond some of our own wildest fantasies.
Yeah, you said so much there. I agree with everything you said, but also we're seeing a coach now that's fully invested in the New York Knicks organization. For whatever his flaws are, and every coach has their flaws. Best believe that. But we're talking about a guy who was here in 1999 when we were last successful. And in terms of a dude who is really, really invested. I think Jeff Van Gundy says no coach pours as much time into the game as Tom Thibodeau does. No coach wants to win badly as much as Tom Thibodeau does. He has his type of players, no doubt, but Phil Jackson also had his type of players, and he came here and messed this whole thing up.
Yeah.
So, talking about, I guess Tom Thibodeau is bringing what we thought he would bring: consistency. He's bringing us a method, a method that seems to be working for the most part. Finishing in the 4th seed, the 5th seed, 2 years later. Now the Eastern Conference, if we can just continue to improve each year, I think we're going to be in the hunt. We're going to be in a situation where the chips will fall in the right place, and we will be here. We will be ready. We're playoff tested now. Players are getting battle tested, practice. In terms of a lot of the minutes, Tom Thibodeau says that's to prepare his guys for this sort of situation. And I think, if he does, wear some players out, that's balanced out by the depth that the New York Knicks have on their squad.
Yeah.
And And that is a situation where, Leon Rose understands that. It's like, okay, we got Tom Thibodeau now, but how do I balance that out? Just get him more guys that he trusts.
Yeah.
The more guys that Tom Thibodeau trusts, he'll play them.
Yeah, and I think that again, one of the things that we saw at the start of the Tom Thibodeau, Leon Rose tenure
Mm.
was that there seemed to be, and that's one of my first comments on one of our first shows together in this iteration of Knicks Buzz, was that there seemed to be this lack of synergy between the front office and the coaching staff and the roster. That first season, there seemed to be such a disconnect that it became kind of apparent. And then it seemed to emerge again the third season, where you started hearing more and more of the voices of certain front office personnel that weren't necessarily thrilled or enthralled about having Leon Rose as their coach. We're now at a point now where um, it's getting harder to question the results. Um,
Wow. Yep.
it's getting
Say that
harder.
again.
It's getting harder to question the results. In a league now where, uh, again, like look at the talent of an Atlanta. Who would have thought 2 seasons ago Atlanta would be where they are right now, where they're floundering? Who would have thought that Toronto would be where they are right now? And in the last 3 seasons, we've seen nothing but growth from the Knicks. Even in last year, like where we had this love-hate relationship with Julius, we saw sparks from Obi. We saw sparks from Emmanuel quickly. Last year,
Mm.
at this time, we were having a conversation as to whether or not Emmanuel quickly could be the starting point guard of these New York Knicks. And if we were having that conversation, if we were talking about Obi possibly breaking out and becoming a viable starting power forward, you can't necessarily disassociate their growth and their progress from the role that the coach and the coaching staff is playing. I hate to say it, like there's a relationship between the two.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And Johnny Bryant is
yeah,
getting a lot of kudos from uh, bridging that gap that maybe the skills that Tom Thibodeau doesn't bring in terms of relating to the younger guys.
yeah. It's starting to come together. And that's why I'm really excited, not just about this season. I'm excited about the future. I'm really excited about next season because
Yeah.
listen, like guys, we're already hearing chatter, and I say this almost every show, but we're hearing chatter about teams that are about to make moves that have been preparing since, you know, a month after the trade deadline, and they were like, "Listen, this player is going to become made available. This player is going to be made available." For the first time, like in a long time, in a real, there's a real sense that Dame Lillard will not be playing for Portland next season. Trust, I'm not saying that I want him for the Knicks. I'm just saying that, but like that level of player, there's going to be a lot of movement
Yeah.
this off season, and like I think a lot of us after the Donovan Mitchell trade to Cleveland, a lot of us were disheartened because we thought, well, who's going to be this next player who's supposed to finally be the cherry on top of what we're building here? And I'm coming here tonight to say, rest assured, I really do think that that player, whomever it might be, will break free and will come loose in the next off season or the season after that. And with the excitement we Knicks fans are showing, damn it to hell, I don't care about those other players who don't want to play for Coach Thibodeau. We're building something and we're showing up to Madison Square Garden, and we have an excitement that ESPN, TNT, NBA TV, we're going to be on a lot of national games. Um, that's the kind of stuff where all of a sudden that
Mm.
player who needs to shake loose will say, "Put me one of my trade requests is to New York."
Yeah. We're not that far off, man. We're one
No,
player away,
we are.
I think. Yep. Give or take, juggle a few pieces around, add a little bit more depth. But in terms of the draft picks we have, EJ, the assets, and let me let me throw this at you. Imagine if lottery night, the
Uh,
Dallas Mavericks. Let me say this again.
Yeah.
A team below the Dallas Mavericks jumps up and pushes the Dallas Mavericks down to the 11th spot, and the New
It
York
would be
Knicks
perfect.
get the 11th selection this year. Wouldn't that
Yeah.
be serendipity, man?
Listen, because we never move up, so it would
Put
be
that
great
out
if
there
we move
into the
down. Yeah,
universe.
it
Yep.
would be great. Honestly, I do think that this is the time for us to really just be excited. And listen, I'm just
Mm.
excited. I'm very excited.
Be excited, buzzing right now as the New York Knicks are close to closing out this series now, commanding lead with 95% chance of going through to the next round against Milwaukee, the Miami Heat, possibly. Either way, I think that series is going to go longer than people think. I think that's going to go. The Heat are up 2-1, and I think it's going to go 6 or 7. Giannis, that injury could be more serious than what we think. The New York Knicks depth, as this playoff run continues, Chat and EJ, I think the Knicks depth will be even more of a weapon in our favor. Quentin Grimes, I think he's going to rest until, they're 100% sure he's okay. I think that shoulder might be something a little more serious than what they're letting on.
Yeah.
But we have the guys that can step up. And I do think that, in terms of the past, right, I put in the chat, Kevin Durant was saying the Knicks weren't cool. Look at look at the Brooklyn Nets, man. He goes there, kills that place, jumps onto another contender, and I don't know anyone that's in the building tonight and the other night can be in that building and say that that is not cool. That's hating for
Yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's literally even media experts say it's the best place to play in. And he's trying to say that that's not cool. He's playing follow the leader and he's following Kyrie to Brooklyn. No, I'm so glad we did it our way as well. You know, we didn't need to trade everyone for Spider.
Yeah.
We didn't need to trade, bring in Kyrie just to get KD and DeAndre Jordan.
Oof.
You know, look at our
Yeah.
young guys stepping up, winning us playoff series, winning us playoff games. You know, building the right way. Look at the chemistry between Josh Hart and Brunson. The chemistry with Obi and Quickly. You know, why would you want to break that up? Give me one logical reason why you would want to break that up.
Well, it's an easy answer, bro. I mean, Brooklyn is cool. It's so cool. It's cold now. Brooklyn is really cold now. As a matter of fact, I think their season is so cool. It's so cold. It's over. So yeah, Brooklyn is cool.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of that wing spot as well, I said this playoffs would be a situation where they gauge RJ's, growth. And after this situation now, I think there's going to be less noise.
Yeah.
22 years old, he's already signed the contract. If he's shown he can perform in the playoffs, what are your thoughts on that wing spot? And, if we were to get that draft pick, how would you, face that situation?
I think we're now in the driver's seat to really determine what are the moves we need to make. I think once we get to the end of the season and whatever transpires with the draft pick takes place, I
Mm.
think, there will be some hard decisions to make. I don't know if every player that's on this roster right now will be returning next season. Because like when you're about to make that quantum leap, I was gonna do it on Mighty Finesse. I was gonna do it, but I didn't want to be that guy. Um, but I do think that there's gonna be some decisions to make about that wing position because I do think we are one piece away. And I think what's great about this, and Nick's exactly right. I'm rooting for our squad. But what's great about whatever takes place this off season is that it gives the Knicks a lot of leverage. For many of the years
Mm.
I've been a Knicks fan, a Knicks fan, we've almost always been operating from a position of deficit, or we've been always operating from a position of weakness, where we've been willing to give more for less because we were so desperate, i.e., Andrea Bargnani. Now we can operate from a position of strength where we can be judicious, we can take our time, and we can say, okay, what is the best move,
Mm.
not out of desperation? What's the best move to build upon what we did in 2022, 2023? And build wisely, that to me, like, we made two signings in the off season that very few people were like gushing over. But look at how important those moves were. So that's what it means to operate from a position of strength. And I'm so glad we're in that position to start doing that now.
Yeah, with the draft picks as well. Even if we don't get Dallas's pick, it's still top 10 protected next year. It's top 10 protected the year after that. We have the Washington, the Milwaukee, and the Detroit first round selections. We have all of our own. I mean, this is just a great situation that's set up for success. Let's close it out as soon as we can. But yeah, that wing spot is still something to watch moving forward. But RJ Barrett's last two performances has taken a long, step towards, his growth and his future with this team, which is not yet written. But I think the Josh Hart thing just makes this so much more palatable.
Yeah.
Because he can fill in if we need. He can play bigger than what he is.
Mm-hmm.
He can rebound better as well. I just think, we add another offensive coordinator and we play fast. I hope we keep Obi. I don't know if we've talked enough about Obi tonight. Give us your thoughts on Obi and what he's shown in the playoffs and the ability to play faster with the bench, with him and RJ and Quickly and Hart running. It's almost like our starting unit and our bench can play two different ways, which is also a reason why we should continue with this unit.
I think I'll be quick with this. I think the most we need to say about Obi tonight is that he closed the fourth quarter. The fact that Obi closed the fourth quarter, he played out the fourth quarter, wasn't just a function of Julius Randle having an off night. It's one thing if Julius Randle has an off night. It's also another thing if Obi is playing within the flow of the game. And so both things can be true, and tonight both things were true. And that Julius had an off night, but there Obi was to do something that many of us thought, Coach Thibodeau wouldn't allow to have happen. Obi was on the floor and he didn't have to look over his shoulder the entire fourth quarter because he was playing so well. And that should be complimented. When you're on the court and it's not a blowout, but you're on the court in the last 5 minutes of the game, that is one of the highest compliments a coach can play or can pay to a player. And to me, Obi deserves as much credit as almost any other player tonight because of the fact that he had enough confidence from his coach to close out the game.
Yeah, 100% on point with Obi and his growth. He's 25 as well. So people often forget, he is a very mature player, and I think he would have been starting on another team easily. So it's kind of not a surprise that he's producing in big moments, off the bench. He does work on his skills. You could tell the three-point shooting is legit now. He hit a big one. He's poised to keep his dribble alive in what was one of the plays of the game, which I don't think I mentioned earlier. EJ, his ability to keep his dribble and get to the cup and lay that thing up.
Yeah.
If the defense continues to improve and come along, he's got one more year on his rookie deal. So I really feel like Obi Toppin, hopefully we keep him as long as possible and he's here for the ride. And the different looks and the different ways we can play, I think, with Obi. But more to the point, playoff ball gives players that confidence, that experience to take their games to the next level. And if you never experience the playoffs, I believe you're missing something as a player because that nothing's going to prepare you more for your game than the playoffs. You know, you could be in the gym all summer. It doesn't matter. If you're not experiencing playoffs, then you don't know what that next level is like.
Yeah, yeah. And again, like, there's a maturation that's happening to Obi's game. We can't forget that this is a different league than what it was 20 years ago, when most players were in the league, or most players entered the league. Even 30 years ago, rather, most players entered the league into 3 years, 4 years of college basketball experience under their belt. And there's a development that takes place in the college basketball game. The college basketball game, even though Obi was a older player leaving Ohio, the college basketball game has changed drastically with one and done players. And so that process of maturing basketball players, that process of coaching up basketball players has changed drastically. So it would take Obi a little bit more time to develop and to mature. And also, again, no one expected for Julius Randle to mature into the player that he's become. And that also is something we need to think of as well too when it comes to Obi. How many years did it take for Julius Randle to become Julius Randle?
Long time.
So could not the same be true for Obadiah Toppin to mature into that player that we conceive that he might become? It may not have happened in the first 3 or 4 seasons, but it definitely can happen year 5, because I think it took Julius like 7 years to
Yeah,
become Julius Randle.
a different player as well. He's not
Yeah.
so much isolation like Julius, but he could still have as much impact on a team winning, playing in the team's offense, playing within the role. I like his help side defense, the help defense coming across. Obviously, he needs to improve his one-on-one defense. His defensive IQ is something that Tom Thibodeau is, wanting to see more from him. But in terms of an offensive player, he's definitely close to being, contributing permanently on a winning team as a starting power forward.
Yeah.
I think we keep him another year and then evaluate, see as we go. But a lot of talk was Jalen Brunson. Was that an overpay? Would we be too small? Now Jalen Brunson coming in here, taking us to playoff victories. I
Yeah.
think that's a situation where other backcourt partners are going to be looking like, man, me and him, we could run this joint. What are your thoughts on adding to another potential backcourt partner with JB or Quentin Grimes? Maybe allowing Quentin Grimes to develop a bit more, knowing that we are one piece away from being a legit contender.
I think I think I think that's a question we can better answer if and when we get into the second round. Because like once we start getting to those upper echelon teams, you start to see like and we all know we're missing a piece, right? And we
Yeah,
all know it's a wing. But I think that, you know, there's something about seeing how this team coalesces and plays against like, a Milwaukee, a Celtics, a Philadelphia for a 7 game series to really measure, okay, because I really do think CT at this point, we're playing with house money. And
yeah,
I think at this point, the Knicks and the front office should really be patient in who they bring in. Um, because not all money is good money.
Oh, say that again.
Not all money is good money. And, you know, there's some people you go and you chase after and you start to realize I wasted a lot of money chasing after someone who really wasn't worth it. Like that's advice like, that applies to so many
Yeah.
different relationships, right?
Like one
Yeah,
example, does Jante Murray transaction
yeah,
look like
bro.
it's paid off for Atlanta?
Not all money is good money. Rudy Gobert, I've been on this. I want my credit. I want ESPN to give me my credit because CT, for the first time they made that trade, I told you that trade made no sense. It
Yes.
inflated the market.
Yeah.
And Minnesota is paying for the sins of that trade. is not all money is good money. So I don't want New York to operate out of a position of desperation anymore. I want us to be judicious when we're spending money, when we're chasing after free agents, when we're considering trades, because the I don't want to go back to the days of the early 2000s, and bad money being spent on players who are not worth it just to get them.
Yeah. Look how the Evan Fournier thing has worked out. Derek
Yeah,
Rose.
yeah,
Thankfully that's been overshadowed by the
yeah.
success. But imagine if we did fall short, and people would be looking at things like, why is $30 million sitting on the
Mm,
bench?
yep.
So I'm not sitting here saying every move Leon Rose has made has been a good move. But thankfully, the draft picks of Grimes and Obi and Quickly have proven to be better players and help this team more than Evan Fournier and uh,
Yeah,
and Derrick Rose. But thankfully, the money comes off the books. The Nerlens Noel move was not great. Um, Alec Burks' move was quite solid. But yeah, I think Leon Rose now, I mean, there'll be so many executives that would be lining up to take over this situation now, knowing
yeah.
how good we are, EJ. So yeah, as we get ready to wrap this thing up tonight, let us know if there's anything you want to touch on.
I do have something to touch on.
Mm.
I should have told you this before. We need some like backing music. Just give me 2 minutes.
Mm.
Ladies and gentlemen, please support Knicks Buzz. Quality content for quality Knicks fans. This is not your average Knicks content. We like and support other Knicks content creators, but this is for people who truly love the Knicks and want to have logical conversations. I just want to encourage you with just two things. Number one, be proud Knicks fans. Hold your head up high. We should be proud of our team, proud of our squad. There are a lot of people who are not used to the Knicks being successful. And so in your family, you might have a hater who's mocking you because of how excited you are. Still be excited. You are a Knicks fan. At your job, you might have someone who's going to knock you and say, well, the Knicks haven't won anything since 1973, but we are up 3 games to 1. Be a proud Knicks fan. You might have a cousin or someone who's on Twitter who's saying the Knicks aren't anything. What they are right now is they are up 3 games to 1. And let me just remind you, a lot of those people who are hating on you right now, who are talking trash about, Knicks fans and how Knicks fans are arrogant, Knicks fans are this, Knicks fans are that, ask them, what's your favorite team? What team do you root for? You ever notice a lot of those fans are people who used to be old Chicago Bulls fans with Michael Jordan. They used to be fans of, Kobe and the Lakers. They used to be fans of, LeBron when he was with Cleveland, then LeBron with Miami, then LeBron with Cleveland, and now they're Lakers fans again. But you know what we are? We're loyal. We're Knicks fans. And I'm excited because this isn't the Clarence Weatherspoon Knicks. This isn't the Howard Isley Knicks. This isn't the Eddie Curry Knicks. This isn't the Roy Tarpley. This isn't Gerald Wilkins. This is 2022, 2023. This is Andre Bargnani.
Oh,
This isn't Alexei Shved. No, 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 no. This is a 2022,
mm.
2023 possible second round New York Knicks. Where's Brooklyn? Home. Where are we? Still in the playoffs. That's all I have to
Man,
say.
that was beautiful. Every single word
Thank you.
was heard from here to the other planet. Um, and yeah, the chat's having fun. We had fun talking about it. We continue. We've got a great guest on tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern. We've got Mike Vaccaro from the New York Post coming on to talk about it. He's been covering the team, the playoffs. He's been on the road in Cleveland. He's no doubt been in MSG tonight, the other night. Going to get his thoughts on the series and the Knicks being up 3-1 as the media continues to cover this series. Let's see what they start saying. Let's see who flips their story, like Scream and A, switching and flipping every single night. Now it's New York, we hear orange and blue skies. But the diehards never go anywhere. You know, this is the best fan base, like Almighty Finesse says. And we are going to continue to get better and better and better, right? It's a storm coming all the way. New York Knicks, let's close this thing out in Cleveland, right? That'll be beautiful. A big road game from Barrett, maybe Randle, Brunson tearing him to shreds. We're a squad, a full deep squad now. That's what you need in the playoffs, you know. Let's see how Milwaukee do down a few soldiers. Let's see how Boston do if they lose a player. Right? Let's see how Philly, they're very, very dependent on Joel Embiid and James Harden. Well, we're building this thing the right way, sustainable success up in here. Great words for me, Jay, from the chat, showed out tonight. Appreciate everyone rocking with us and beyond, and the super chats tonight. Appreciate everyone, and let's get it. Right, we'll see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. New York Knicks all day. Salute, salute, salute.